Hi guys, Darren from venomfluidart. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I thought I'd share one of my pouring mediums with you. Now, over here in Australia, we used to use Taubman's Door and Trim in a neutral gloss for our untinted house paint pouring medium. Problem was, about 8 months ago, they discontinued that total range and replaced it with some other stuff that just doesn't work as good. So, over the last 8 months, I've been messing around with half a dozen different pouring mediums and seeing which ones work, which ones don't. So you can imagine how expensive that is when you go through, 20 different cans of paint at $100 a pop to find out which ones work. So, what I did was used a Taubman's Sunproof. That works quite well, but you've got to be real careful with the amount of Joe Sonia that put in. Otherwise, things start moving on you as it dries. Colours stay beautiful, but yeah, if you're too heavy-handed with Joe Sonia, everything moves as it dries. It's really glossy, really slippery, and spoils your day. So, what I'm going to do is share with you another one that I use for pours and blooms, mainly during winter, as when temperatures drop, your paint thickens up. So I have one that I use for summer and one that I use for winter. Pretty tricky, huh? Okay, so what we have here is, in this little cup here, is the Taubman Sunproof, which looks white, but when you dip your finger in it and smush it in, it turns clear. Okay, that's what you want. You need a clear medium. So the consistency of that straight out the can is like that. Leaves a couple of seconds trace, then disappears. It's not bad. You can stand that up in it. Then we have our other untinted house paint, which is another Taubman's. You put that on your finger, and when you rub it in, it's still got a little bit of white to it. So it's going to change your colours just a little bit when you mix them up, but it does dry really, really clear. So what you're going to have is, I did a pour a couple of days ago, which you might have seen the reels for. If not, I'll put a photo up on the screen now of what it was wet. This is what it looks like dry. So your colours will dull off a little bit, but as soon as you resin that or put a clear gloss coat on it, your colours will come back exactly the same as what they were wet. So, let's start mixing. So what I've got in this cup is our Taubman's and our Taubman's. I'm going to tell you what that is at the end. That way you got to watch it. You might learn something along the way. So what I'm going to do is, that's half a cup, which is 80 ml. I mean, I could have gone more, no big deal. But for what we're doing today, I'm only making up a small batch. Alright, so we're going to scoop that out. much out of the cup as I can. Probably could have done it an easy way, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so that is 80 ml or half a cup. Our other pouring medium is exactly the same amount. 80 ml, quarter of a cup. So you're going 50-50. Now this one here that I'm putting in now is a low sheen. It's a low sheen untinted house paint, whereas the Taubman's Sunproof is a gloss. So we're mixing a gloss with a low sheen. Now the reason we do that is you don't want it too glossy, because as things dry, it moves, distorts your cells, you end up with wonky patterns, and it's gonna suck. So I use a low sheen, knowing full well that it's gonna dull my colors off, but as soon as you clear coat it, all your colors come back, because this actually dries crystal clear. It's like when we used to do automotive painting. If you wanted a really nice black gloss paint job on your car, you'd spray it matte black, then clear coat it. The matte black gave you a lot better finish than if you just used a gloss black. Alright, so mix those together. So now our consistency is quite a bit thicker. Now that will thicken a little bit overnight, which will be perfect for your ring pours, blooms, swipes, things like that. The only issue with the other one is the fact that it gets a crap load of bubbles. So when you do mix it, you're going to need to leave it at least 24 hours. Otherwise, you're going to have little bubbles everywhere. So even now then, I've only just stirred that real gentle. Haven't gone nuts with it. Just folded it all in. And I don't know whether the camera will pick that up, but there's bubbles on the stick. So it does get bubbly, but don't stress, it all comes out overnight. So we'll put that to one side. Okay, tube paints are easy. So what we'll do is start with a pigment instead. I'll just grab a little stick here. This will do. Alright, so pigments. This is Wisteria Purple by Eye Candy. Going to put in that much on the end of a scoop. Going to do the same again. I like my stuff highly pigmented, because when you do stretch it out, the paint doesn't break up. You've still got all the colour all through it. So that's what I do. Okay, Jo Sonja Gloss Varnish. Give that a squirt. And we put that in so we can disperse the pigments. Actually, what I'll do is I'll zoom this in. Make it easier for you to see. Alright, so all I'm doing is mixing that in. Now common sense has to prevail when you're using this sort of stuff. Wear a dust mask. You don't want all them little pigments floating around in the air for you to breathe in. Safety glasses would be handy because you don't want them in your eyes. Alright, so we mix that up, mix it up, mix it up. Make sure we've got all that powder dispersed in the Jo Sonja. And you want it so that it can drizzle like that. Okay, so it's not overly thin, but it's not overly thick. You get a nice drizzle off it. And we are good. So what we'll do is, there we've got that one. I'll do a tube paint. Now for the tube paint, what I usually do is grab some of the pourer medium, stick it in the cup, and go a couple of scoops of that. Now if you're making bigger batches, obviously you'll put more in. We'll go with this quinacridone red violet, and I'm going to go a blob, which is about the size of a blueberry. We'll start with that. I'm just going to use the same stick. It's close enough to purple. Alright, I'm going to mix that in. Now if I want more of this, what I'm going to do is add more pourer medium. I like to mix it bit by bit. That way you can tell when the colour changes on you. Alright, so we'll put another 2 scoops of that in. So we want to make up a couple of colours. Alright, so we're going to mix that. What I usually do is leave the white here and just mix it in bit by bit like that. That way you can see when your colour starts to change, you've got enough in there. Alright, so consistency. Is that. Leaves a trace for 3 or 4 seconds and then disappears. Now that is full of bubbles, so stick a lid on it, park it overnight, don't use it straight away, otherwise you will get bubbles. Alright, now that that's been sitting there a little while, dispersing, going to do the same thing with that. Going to add a scoop of that in. Like that. And then we're just going to mix that in little bit by little bit. You'll notice with pigments, the colour will change more when you mix the pourer medium in. But don't stress, it dries clear. Your colour comes back. It's all good. But if you're doing videos and things like that, just remember your colours will be a little bit different to what they are in the jars, bottles, cans, whatever. Alright, so mix that in. Now you can fold this in a lot slower than I am. I'm just doing it fast to save time, which is going to introduce bubbles anyway. But the poorer medium will give you a load of bubbles. So, same again. Yeah, 3 or 4 seconds. And then disappears. Now you can do a drip test to make sure your consistencies are the same, which is probably a good idea. That way you've got them all identical. If you wanted to do a drip test, what I'll do is grab another tile. So I've got another tile here. Grab a bit of this colour. Alright, grab a bit of this colour. Now tube paints will always be a little bit thicker anyway. Alright, so you want that roughly as close as possible as you can, the same diameter. It's a little bit off, but whatever. And all you're going to do is tilt. And you want them to flow at roughly the same rate. Pretty close, not far off. The pigment looked a little bit thicker there, but I put more. Get the tube paint on. They're roughly the same. Near enough's close enough. It doesn't have to be identical, but the closer you get it, the better. Alright, so we'll do a structure, which are usually a lot thicker anyway. More heavily pigmented, so you really don't need that much to get the same colour. This is what's in the tube. Same again. We'll do probably half a blueberry on that one compared to the Atelier. Alright. Mix that in. So just by going half a blueberry on your heavy bodies and things like that, you still get the same amount of pigment in there, but it's the same consistency. And you'll learn that over time. It's just practice, practice, practice. Now, if you've added too much Joe Sonia to start with, when you mixed up your pigments and you want to thicken it, just add a little bit more pigment. It'll thicken it up. If you added too much tube paint and it's too thick, add a little bit of Joe Sonia, it'll thin out. It doesn't really take much to thin it out. Alright, so we'll add some more of that in. Just say we've got roughly the same amount in each one. And Same again. Now, if you've got some flow colours like these, Atelier Flows, and you want to make a really cool purple, here's a cool trick. The Wisteria Purple from Eye Candy is that. Add a blob of your flow to it, which is Dioxazine Purple. Mix that in. And your Wisteria Purple now goes a really cool trippy purple. And that didn't thicken it. It stayed as it was. Same consistency. So there's a cool trick for mixing colours. What else shall we put in? We'll do another one, which is a neon. Now, neons usually take a little bit more Joe Sonia to get them to disperse, just because of the nature of them. They're a really thick type powder. Add some to that. Mix that in. When you first disperse these pigments, it's easier. You add a little bit of Joe Sonia at a time, rather than just doing a big squirt all together. Until you get a bit of practice at it, and then, you know, you can do it blindfolded. It's like second nature. I probably mix up, I don't know, 80 to 100 colours a week. So I can pretty much do it blindfolded now. You know what consistency to look for, etc, etc. Now, ratios. Ratios are a total waste of time. They can get you into a rough ballpark, but that's about it. Especially with this type of stuff, because each different colour is a different viscosity. So your ratios are going to be out from colour to colour. You're better off going by trying to keep them all the same consistency by adding a little bit of paint each time, or a little bit of Joe Sonia each time. Yes, it's a pain in the bum, but it's way more accurate than trying to do it with ratios, because, like I said, they're all different. So that's where we want the neon to be. Same consistency as our first pigment. Drizzles off the stick. Leaves a trace. And we are good for our pourer medium. Especially with neons, make sure you really give them a good work over, because you can get clumpy bits in it that when your paint dries, you end up with little rough bits on the top of your painting, just where the pigments haven't dispersed properly. Right, so same again. Put that in. you'll notice tube paints and neons, like neon pigments, the colour doesn't really change at all. It's only the other sparkly type pigments. You'll see the colour change. More so on dark colours. But like I said, once it dries, it dries. So, same consistency as the others. So, you'll be able to see, whoop, where's the camera? All the bubbles coming up to the surface now. That's why we want to leave them overnight. Alright, so what I usually do is, once I've mixed up all my colours that I want, I'll give them a tap like that. What that does is brings all the bubbles up to the surface. Once they hit the air, they start to pop like that. So you just give them all a tap, leave them overnight. If you want, every half an hour for the next, couple of hours, just come in, give them a bit of a tap on the bench, walk away, leave them. That way the next day, they'll be fine for you, ready to start painting. So what I'll do is now, put these to one side. We'll grab some colours I mixed up yesterday, and we'll do a swipe and a bloom with them, just so you can see what they look like. Alright, so I'll press pause now, and I'll be back. Okie dokie. So, I've got a 6-inch tile here. These are the colours I just mixed in a little shot glass. So they are still good enough to do our little pours with. So we get some crazy little patterns. Like that. Don't know whether the camera will pick it up, but give that a stretch. So they still hold up really well for that. Cool part is, pop some of these bubbles. These are the ones I actually just mixed, so they're a bit bubbly. I have got other ones I mixed yesterday, which I'll grab in a minute, but just for giggles. Selectivator. That. blow out a bloom with it. So that's at the same consistency as our little ring pour we've just done. It's the same paint. All we've done is poured a ring pour out, blew it into a bloom. So you don't need to change consistencies. Just follow what I've showed you in the video. Also, then if you want to have a bit more fun, add some colour around. All of this will fly off when I spin it out because I didn't spin the pillow out. But I can show you that it does swipes as well. All the same consistency, all holds up really well. Right, use that. But yeah, because you've used the low sheen, it doesn't have the movement as if it was all gloss. So when it's all glossy, everything gets really slippery as it dries and everything moves around and distorts everything, which you don't want. Alright, so we'll just throw some of that down. You'll notice too, once you've mixed it up and your colours are muted a little bit, the next day they'll be a lot more bright and vibrant too, with way less bubbles. So, where'd I put my swipe tool? Good question, Wombat. There it is. Ha! Found it. It's all good. Don't panic. Don't stress. Alright. So, grab a little swipe tool. Add some Selectivator on, which is Amsterdam Oxide Black mixed with Australian Floetrol at 3 to 1. Swipe-alicious. So even at that consistency, it's great for swipes, great for blooms, great for ring pours, whatever you choose. And best of all, it doesn't move as it dries. Alright, we'll spin this little dude out. So if anyone's just using the Taubman Sunproof and you're struggling with it moving, 50-50 mix it with the other stuff and you will be good to go. Alright, we'll pop that one up. Boop, 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 boop. There it is. Holds the cells great. Your cells don't sink. You can still use Amsterdam titanium white or oxide black or lamp black as your cell activator without a problem. You don't have to go to the Tri-Art, which awesome paint, but you have to sell a kidney to pay for it. So alright, now you're all saying, but Daz, what is the other paint? Good question. Taubman's Easy Coat, all walls, interior, low sheen, neutral. That is the other stuff. Made by PPG, like all Taubman's products now. So it's 50-50 of that with the Taubman's Sunproof. I'll pop both photos up on the screen now for you to have a look at. Works really well. Like I said though, leave it overnight before you try and do anything with it, because you will get, don't know where that picks it up, tiny little bubbles. You'll see all the little bubbles popping up. So yeah, patience is one of those things that you're going to need for that. If you've got any questions, just drop them in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Or if you're in my private Facebook group, Paint Pouring by venomfluidart, ask the question in there and I'll get back to you a whole heap quicker than I will on YouTube. So there you go. That stuff works really well. The consistency is actually really good. It doesn't matter what you really mix into it, as long as you're careful with the amounts you mix in. You can get the consistencies really close to each other. But like I said, if your tube paint's a little bit too thin, add a little bit more tube paint. If your pigments are too thin, add a little bit more pigment. It doesn't matter if you over pigment things, because as you stretch it out, the colours don't break up. I prefer more pigment than not enough. Otherwise it'll start looking like you got flocculation through your paintings. When they start to dry, you'll see little bits that are breaking up and feathering out and doing all sorts of crazy things. I prefer bright solid colours. Yes, it costs you more in the long run for pigments and things like that, but there's no point doing one, having it break up on you and then go, I'm going to have to paint over the top of this one. So you actually saved half as much. Alright guys, hopefully that video was some sort of help to you. That's the one I've been using for 7 months now. So all my stuff works really well. If you have any dramas, like I said, just leave me a message. But I found it pretty good. Cells don't sink. Consistencies are really good. Give it a go. If you do, let me know. Alright guys, have fun, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.